Have you ever thought why we're so drawn to storytelling? What is it about a story that captures our attention and stays in our mind? Whether it's a childhood memory, a gripping movie, or a good book that we read. Stories have a universal and unique power to them. And in this video, we will explore the heart of storytelling and what makes good stories work. I'll start with an example. My wife and I this summer went on a vacation for the first time after 2 years since we had our newborn baby. We were very excited, and it was also the first time we decided to rent a car as opposed to take public transportation overseas. We went to Turkey, and when we got there, we went to the car renting agency. They reviewed the contract and they asked us if we wanted insurance. And because it's our first time, we decided it made sense. We took the car, we drove around, we went from city to city, and at some point we decided to go on this mountain area up north where there were mountains and hikes and waterfalls for us to explore. So we get to the destination where the waterfalls are, we went on a hike, we swim in clean fresh water, we enjoyed the view from on top of the mountain, and once we were done, we headed back to the car because we had a 4-hour drive to our next destination, which was an Airbnb that we rented in a small village that oversaw the sea, the horizon, and farms. On the highway on our way to the village, we noticed that we were the only ones on the road. It was a Sunday and it was around election time for the new president of Turkey, and we figured a lot of people were either going to election polls or they were just off and spending time with family. At some point, I noticed that there was a blinking light on my dashboard, and I pulled over because it was the icon of a tire. I checked my tires and one of them was losing air. It wasn't all the way to the ground, but it was halfway through. I called the car company and explained to them my situation, and they were scared. The agent that was speaking to me, he asked me where my location was and if I see any gas station, because he was worried, as he explained, that every tire shop in the country was supposed to be closed that day. So instead of panicking, I looked on Google Maps and I found a tire shop that was half a mile ahead. So I went to it, drove slowly, my caution lights were on, and when I arrived there, I found out that it was a gas station and it had a tire pump. I tried to pump the tire, but the air would not hold. I turned around and I saw a tire shop all the way in the corner, hidden behind the gas station. I go to it and it was open. I asked the guy if he can fix my tire. He did not understand me. I had to use Google Translate, and then he told me yes, he can fix it. I was elated. It was one of the happiest moments of the trip, because if I did not find this gas station, my other choice was either to call the police or just park till the next day. I don't know what my next solution was going to be. I get the tire fixed and I pay like $5, and so I get back in the car, I put the car in reverse, and I'm backing up, and boom, I smash into another car. All of a sudden, people come out of the gas station. I have 6 men surrounding me and speaking in Turkish. As I was explaining to them that I did not speak their language and I only spoke English, they were yelling at me, pulling me by my shirt, asking me questions that I did not understand, and I was afraid. And it wasn't until they calmed down that I took out my phone, asked them whose car was on Google Translate, and then they were able to respond to me. We found who the guy was, and he asked me to wait for him. He took a picture of the damage that I made, which was his back bumper that was all the way inside. Mine had a little bit of scratches, which I was still afraid of because the car company had warned us that if we returned the car with any damages, they were going to charge us some absurd amount. They told me if the headlight was broken, they would charge me $150, which in the US we can change it for a fraction of that amount. I get back in my car and I'm waiting and I'm nervous, and my wife is asking me what they wanted, and I told her that we were just waiting for him to check how much fixing the damage would cost because he was asking a friend of his. And 15 minutes later, he knocked on my window and he told me it was gonna cost me $300. Mind you, this car was a Toyota Corolla, like a 1995. It wasn't even worth that much money anyway, but it was my mistake that I hit the man's car, and it was my responsibility to fix it. I tried to negotiate the price down, but he would not budge, and he threatened to call the police on me. And the bigger issue was I did not have $300 on me. All I had was my credit cards and my debit cards, and I did not want to use them on the gas station. I just wanted to give him cash and be done with the whole situation. So I went back to my car, took all the cash that I had, which was $100 and a few lira bills that I had exchanged from earlier that day, and I gave it all to the man. I literally just spread all the money in front of him. I told him, take the bills that you want and leave me the rest for gas and food. So he spoke Turkish to the other men that were around him, and after a few exchanges, he took the $100 and he took the biggest bill, which was 200 liras, and he went about his way and I went about mine. 4 days later, when we returned to the car agency, I made sure that I parked the car in a way where the hit was not facing the entrance of the agency. Still, the representative came out and he came with a clipboard and he checked the car and he missed it. And we went back to the US and we were not charged by the hit. Now, this is one way to tell a story. Another way to tell the story is literally how a lot of people who tell the story will come up to you at work or at school and tell you, oh, you know what happened to me this weekend? Something crazy. We rented a car overseas, our tire popped, we found a tire shop, we got it fixed, but then I hit another car and the owner threatened to call the police and he asked us for a lot of money and I had to negotiate with him. And then at some point he was satisfied and we gave him $100 and we went about our way, which is just a series of events. But what makes good stories is few elements that anybody can use to turn a mundane event, not even like the one that I shared with you, to a story that has value, that can entertain, and to something interesting. The framework that I use is called HEE, H-E-E, H for hook, E for escalate, and another E for ending. The hook. Never start a story with setting up expectations for your listener or your reader. Don't tell someone that this story is going to be crazy. Have you heard what happened to me? Don't set expectations. Your first sentence, whether you're writing the story or whether you're telling it, your first sentence is supposed to capture the interest of the listener, the reader. I remember a political science professor in college used to tell us that the first sentence, imagine that when a reader is reading it, it's like you grabbing their shirt collar from the page and pulling them inside. And this is what the first sentence is supposed to do. This is what the first detail that you share with someone is supposed to do. The second part is always escalate. A listener, reader loses their interest on a story when they just hear a listicle, a laundry list of events. This happened and this happened and this happened, and there is no stakes or escalation that happens for them to be invested in what they're listening or reading. Because if you come to it, stories are an emotional experience. So if I'm listening to a story, I want to feel afraid for the main character. I want to feel worried for the main character. I want to feel happy for them. I want to feel what they are feeling in the moment that they are in. And the third point is the ending. Always delay the surprise till the ending. Often the way we think of stories to tell, or when a big event happens to us and we tell it to a friend or a family member or a coworker, we start with the biggest piece of the event because that's where the story for us was experienced the most. If I go to the grocery store and I see a fight, the first thing that registers for me from that story is the fight. But then there has got to be a lead up that you build up until the biggest event happened. So an example for my story, I could have started with us renting a car and then the third day the tire pops. But then what I did was I built up the story first. It was our first vacation after our daughter was born. We were excited because it was our first time to rent a car. We visited a few places before we went to the village. And then on our way, on a Sunday, on election day, the tire pops. So you keep that surprise element after you build up some stakes that the reader, listener can invest in. And the way you end it is making the reader, listener feel something. Was worried for the character, happy for them, relieved. Anything that promotes an emotion that can close the story. And lastly, do not end it too soon or too early. I could have ended the story that I shared with you after we fixed the tire. But then I wanted it to be a full circle when we came back to the agency, because that would, for me, end the story where it all sort of started. But I also could have stretched it even longer and told you about the next 3 days that we spent in Turkey without the car. But that information is not even relevant to the whole story. So you cut out what's not relevant, you include what matters, and you end it with an emotion. So the next time you tell a story or you write one, make sure that you are conscious about the way you tell the story, and I promise you will become a better storyteller. If you like this video, then you will enjoy watching the video on the art of quitting and when you should stop telling stories that do not work. Thank you for watching and keep writing.